It's not as if the South Koreans had set out to conquer the world. There are the K-dramas, the K-pop, the K-beauty, the famous Korean cosmetics storming the world, visual politic community. The K is trending big time. It's everywhere. And yes, it's also arrived here.
K-Defense. South Korea's weapons industry goes global.
The idea of buying heavy military weapons from South Korea may still seem a bit strange to us, but I can tell you that in a few years, it will seem quite normal. Soon, Korean equipment will be as well known as American Abrams, British Challengers, or German Leopards. This is a top priority for Seoul.
I support the bold challenge of K-Defense.
But what exactly does this gamble imply? Well, you see, in several videos, we've already told you about the gigantic takeoff that the South Korean military industry is already experiencing. We're talking about a serious change. We often say that China is the world's factory, but in relative terms, South Korea is off the map. This country manufactures everything. 30% of all the ships made in the world, even cars, batteries, microchips, and now also tanks and missiles. In fact, this country is fast becoming a veritable armaments factory for the West. Pay attention to this. Some customers like Poland have already finalized purchases for more than $20 billion to get their hands on all kinds of equipment. And in a recent video here on Visual Politic, we already told you about the important role South Korea could play in the war in Ukraine. Be that as it may, the point is that South Koreans are very proud of their growing military industry, an industry they know as K-Bangsan. And do you know what? They have plenty of reasons to feel that way. While up until 2020, this country was selling the world some $2 to $3 billion in weapons, ammunition, and military equipment, since then, things have completely skyrocketed. Its sales have taken off stronger than SpaceX's spacecraft. In 2022, military exports exceeded $17 billion, and now, in 2024, they're expected to break the $20 billion barrier. It stands to reason that this is something that has consequences. The rapid growth of defense exports alone in 2022 created at least 130,000 new jobs in the country, and so far, it's estimated that this sector has generated an additional $34 billion that has poured into other related industries. We're talking, therefore, about a huge source of wealth. But take note, because this is only the beginning. The goals for the coming years are much more ambitious. By 2027, South Korea wants to have established itself as the world's fourth largest producer and exporter of military equipment. Now, let's take a moment, because we've already talked about this, so we're not going to tell you again. We aren't going to tell you that the South Koreans are selling lots of weapons to this or any other country, because we've already told you that in videos like this one that you can find in the description. No, this video is going to be totally different. During the month of October, several members of the visual team traveled to South Korea. They went to participate in KDEX, the Korea Army International Defense Exhibition, one of the most important military trade fairs in Asia and increasingly the world. These fairs are basically like a huge supermarket of tanks, missiles, rifles, drones, artillery, and everything you can imagine. It's where many military personnel from all over the world come to find out what's going on in the industry, what the latest news is, and to negotiate the occasional purchase. Look, can I grab 10 K2 tanks, 20 air-to-ground missiles, and a couple of drones, please, to go? Something like that. The point is that our colleagues went to find out firsthand what the South Korean industry is working on, and to talk to the main producers in the sector. And that is why this time we're going to tell you who exactly the players in this kind of uniformed miracle of the Han River are. Because talking about the number of exports is all well and good, but more importantly, the big players are the companies that are working every day to design, develop, and manufacture all kinds of weapons for the ever-growing Made in South Korea military catalog.
Hello, my name is Alex Kim, and I am a regional manager at Hyundai Rotem, and I am part of the Global Defense Business Team.
My name is Namyoon Kim, and I'm the Communications Office Manager at Hanwha Aerospace.
Hello everyone, my name is Junbum Woo. In English, I can call by Ronnie, and I'm working for Korea Defense Industry, and I'm the business manager about export business side.
So, who are the main players in the South Korean military industry? What is the South Korean government doing to make its fledgling military sector win hearts and minds among the world's militaries? What are the most important pieces of equipment it produces? Well, we're going to tell you all this and much more next. So, load your ammunition, aim, and fire. Let's get started.
A gigantic industrial epicenter.
As I just mentioned, the South Korean military takeoff has been a real whirlwind. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has made defense industry expansion an absolutely central objective of his presidency. He wants South Korea to be the world's fourth largest defense exporter by 2027. And the way things are going, they are very likely to achieve that.
Now, for example, our company, we already export to Poland as well as Peru, and we have other Korean companies making their ways into European and even perhaps American markets. So it has become extremely big over these recent years, and I can only see them increasing.
Now, what exactly is the government doing to achieve this goal, and could other countries learn from these formulas? Well, South Korea is focusing primarily on 4 major avenues to bring its products to the global forefront. Specifically, the government is putting money into developing the following fields at breakneck speed: artificial intelligence with military applications, hypersonic technology, with which they hope to develop much more advanced missiles, synthetic biology, for example, for the development of systems to protect soldiers from biological or chemical agents, and quantum physics, with which they hope to map cities and obtain images through opaque structures to find out who is hiding where. Quantum cameras. Watch out for this. But with quantum physics, they also hope to develop equipment to detect enemy movements in advance, communicate with total security, and even perform nuclear weapons simulations. You didn't think this was all a matter of factories, a few bullets, and off we go, did you? Well, the point is that within these fields, the government has selected 100 small and medium-sized defense companies to support until at least 2026 with funding, advice, and R&D. But it's not only the state that is putting money into making the industrial fabric grow with more and better companies.
Private companies such as the Hanwha Group have thrown themselves wholeheartedly into funding new defence startups. The idea is to develop a huge cluster of companies at full speed, specialising in all kinds of military research. Among other reasons, because the development of cutting-edge equipment is important for South Korea to be able to deal with threats like China and North Korea, and also, naturally, to be able to place its products all over the world.
Because, as I was telling you before, the South Koreans have realized one thing. The threat from North Korea and China has led them to spend a lot of money on their military year after year. But now they can turn that situation into a huge source of wealth. And that is precisely what they are working on.
The Republic of Korea has been continuously developing cutting-edge weapon systems to respond to military threats from North Korea. Thanks to these efforts, we have been able to acquire weapon systems with world-class performance. Moreover, since most of these weapons are used by the South Korean military, their reliability is well recognized. In addition, because the defense industry ecosystem has been steadily nurtured, the advantage of Korea's defense industry is that it can quickly deliver products at a reasonable price and at the time desired by the customer.
That's why they now want to focus this industry much more on exports to be placed all over the world. Armored vehicles, fighters, tanks, and artillery. Not to mention shipbuilding, an area where South Korea is already beginning to gain importance by exporting frigates and submarines to countries such as Indonesia and the Philippines. All at competitive prices and, very, very importantly, without having practically any limitation of use. And without having to ask permission from Seoul to use their weapons, something that happens on many occasions with the United States and other countries such as Switzerland, and that explains news headlines like this.
Switzerland blocks transfer of anti-aircraft guns from Spain to Ukraine.
And not only that, South Korea also promises much faster deliveries thanks to its huge industrial muscle. Check it out.
The first 10 K2 tanks and 24 K9 howitzers were unloaded at Polish docks only 4 months after the purchase contract was signed, and the first FA-50 aircraft arrived in Poland just 10 months after the deal was signed. These are unbeatable lead times for the Western military industry these days. For example, with Taiwan, the US is quoting delivery times of about 7 years for the new F-16 fighters they purchased, and delays of between 2 and 3 years for Stinger missiles and other key munitions.
But who exactly are the protagonists in this huge industrial takeoff? Well, one of the main pillars of the South Korean military industry is the Agency for Defense Development. This is a state-owned military R&D institution that works closely with the country's private sector to develop many of the technologies that are then manufactured by private companies. Companies like the ones you see on the screen: Hanwha Systems, Hyundai Rotem, Korea Aerospace Industries, and LIG Nex 1.
KDR is key manufacturing the rocket system and engineering ammunition systems, also the fuses and sonar sensor systems, and also the drone system.
And this is where we get to the big question. What exactly is South Korea working on to conquer world markets? Well, as I said earlier, to answer this question, several members of the team went to Daejeon. It's one of the South Korean cities where a significant part of the military industry is concentrated. We got a first-hand look at what they're working on, and now it's time to share it with all of you. Listen up.
Weapons, plenty for everyone.
Right now, South Korea's largest and most important defense companies are part of the Hanwha Group, one of the country's most important business conglomerates, or chaebols.
Hanwha is a global defense company that represents Korea. Hanwha Aerospace manufactures a variety of weapon systems, such as the K9 self-propelled howitzer, the Chunmoo MR-LS, and the Redback armored vehicle. It provides a wide range of comprehensive defense solutions across land, sea, air, and space, based on the synergy between its affiliates, such as Hanwha Systems and Hanwha Ocean.
Do you remember the South Korean HIMARS? The K239 Chunmoo that we've told you about several times on this channel is developed and manufactured by Hanwha Aerospace. It's also the company that, along with Lignex 1, is completing the commissioning of the LSAM. We're talking about South Korea's most advanced long-range missile defense system, a system that will become a perfect complement to the American Patriot. It can intercept ballistic missiles up to 100 kilometers high, while the Patriot can intercept ballistic missiles at 40 to 60 kilometers maximum. And as well as the anti-ballistic missile, it will also have an anti-aircraft version. We're talking about a system that could be key to shielding the skies of the West from threats from countries such as Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And yes, South Korean equipment is much cheaper than American equipment, but this group not only works on anti-missile systems, they also produce components and engine systems for military airplanes and helicopters, space propulsion systems, components for ballistic missiles, and yes, it is also the current manufacturer of the sought-after K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers, one of the crown jewels of this country's industry. But remember I told you earlier that South Korea has its sights set on becoming a world leader? Well, logically that means they're trying to develop systems that go far beyond conventional equipment.
This is one of the most interesting bets. Hanwha is developing the Laser Anti-Aircraft Weapon Block 1, a system designed to neutralize drones and all types of unmanned aerial vehicles. This system does not require ammunition and uses a fiber optic laser, a silent and above all economical technology. This development is well advanced, but it's only the beginning. They're already working on the Block 2 version, which will have greater range and power and will be able to hit ballistic missiles and larger aircraft. In other words, we are talking about a laser system that can economically and efficiently protect the skies over the West.
But of course, star systems count. That's why Hanwha is also already developing an evolution of the famous K9 self-propelled howitzer. The war in Ukraine is providing real-world inspiration for much-needed developments, and that's why the new artillery system will have semi-autonomous and unmanned technologies so that it can be operated without soldiers inside and fire 155mm howitzers up to 80 kilometers away. And of course, they're also developing an unmanned multiple rocket launcher system. Could the K239 Chunmoo become a system that doesn't even need soldiers inside? This would certainly be quite a coup, because the idea is clear. Fewer and fewer lives must be risked on the battlefield. The war in Ukraine has been a failure in that it has shown that armies still have many limitations, and that is what needs to be corrected. The early birds will get the worm. But we can't only talk about Hanwha. Another company that's playing a key role in the future of the South Korean military-industrial complex is Hyundai Rotem. Yes, many of you may only know Hyundai for its cars. Hyundai? But Hyundai is not just Hyundai Motor. The Hyundai Group is another huge chaebol comprising companies that do just about everything. Trains, elevators, excavators, merchant ships, and industrial robots. And these are just 5 examples because the list is endless. Well, in the defense sector, Hyundai Rotem is the star of the group, as well as powerful armored systems for troop transport and support such as the KW-1 Scorpion. I'm sure many of you are at least familiar with the K2 Black Panther tank. We're talking about the crown jewel of South Korean tanks and one of the most advanced in the world.
This tank is starting to sell like hot cakes. Poland alone has bought about 1,200, and now Romania seems to be about to confirm another major purchase. The K2 will thus become one of NATO's major bulwarks for defending its eastern border. This tank has enormous mobility, high protection, and high firepower thanks to its 120mm gun. It has an advanced digital fire control system and an engine that makes it one of the fastest tanks on the market, reaching speeds of up to 43 miles per hour on asphalt and 31 miles per hour off-road. And that clearly is something that makes it very elusive in attack and escape operations.
Well, this star of combat vehicles is manufactured by Hyundai Rotem.
What's really unique about the K2 main battle tank is that it has 1,500 horsepower engines, but we are 56 tons, so we are a lot lighter than our competitors. So that means it's a lot more maneuverable and a lot faster. And it can navigate its way through harsh terrains. We have completed the winter trial testings in Norway. We have completed the desert trial testings in Oman. And then we have demonstrated and performed well during the NATO exercise in Poland.
But, of course, that's not all. Hyundai is developing something even more ambitious, the so-called next-generation main battle tank.
South Korea's 2030 SNG MBT main battle tank promises advanced capabilities.
This new tank, which some are already calling the K3, will feature an unmanned turret with a remotely controlled 130mm gun.
This gun will allow you to hit targets up to 3 miles away and will have a fully automated loading system. What's more, the tank will be armed with at least 2 anti-tank guided missiles and a directional infrared countermeasures system to disrupt enemy heat-seeking guided missiles. And following the Ukraine experience, the new tank will also have a drone jamming system that will give it an additional defensive layer against threats.
I've already told you that the South Koreans are moving rapidly, but it's not just about tanks. Talking to Hyundai Rotem, they've told us how an important gamble for them is the development of drones powered by hydrogen cells for reconnaissance and surveillance missions. They would be much quieter and have more autonomy. But we wouldn't be telling you the whole story if we left out 2 other companies that are playing a key role in this takeoff: Lignex 1 and Korea Aerospace Industries. In the case of Lignex 1, one of its best known recent developments is the LSAT we were talking about before. But unlike Hanwha, which develops more the anti-ballistic part, Lignex 1 focuses mainly on the anti-aircraft part. Even so, along with the LSAM, this company is finalizing the development of the Low Altitude Missile Defense, a system conceptually very similar to the Israeli Iron Dome that the Koreans hope to sell left and right. But we're not even done yet. Did you know that South Korea is developing a Generation 4.5 fighter with stealth capabilities to have a stealthier profile than conventional fighters? The idea is that in a few years, it could evolve into a full-fledged 5th generation fighter. In this case, the major player for this is Korea Aerospace Industries, or KAI, the company that is developing the KF-21 Boramae fighter. And you'll say, why do they need to develop an indigenous 4.5 generation fighter? Well, in the world of defense, the less dependent you are on another country, the better. The South Koreans' idea is not to replace Western weaponry with their own, but to complement it. And what is potentially more important, creating a huge business selling an aircraft that's much cheaper than the Western ones. Visual Politic Community, the KF-21, which is already in the test flight phase, is intended to mount several different weapon systems, such as air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles, both short and medium range, which means one thing: it will be able to operate in both air superiority and tactical attack roles. In this case, this aircraft is scheduled to enter service in 2026, and South Korea plans to obtain about 120 units to replace its older fighters. And yes, as I mentioned, there are also plans to introduce the KF-21 on the international market. The South Koreans are wild about the huge business behind the military forces. For proof, check out this headline.
Poland completes first batch of 12 KAI FA-50 light combat aircraft.
Yes, there is another South Korean fighter, the FA-50, which KAI has already started selling in Europe. In this case, it's a light fighter developed in collaboration with Lockheed Martin that is intended for both aerial combat and training. It can also make attacks on ground targets because it has the capability to carry unguided missiles, as well as GPS-guided bombs. In other words, we're talking about an extremely versatile fighter that is a much more economic alternative to, for instance, other 4th generation fighters, such as the American F-16. You've already witnessed it, even from the mouths of some of the representatives of the leading South Korean defense companies. The land of K-pop wants to become the land of K-defense in the not too distant future. Its inventory of weapons is becoming more and more advanced, and all with much more competitive prices and much shorter delivery times. Are we witnessing the birth of a military giant that will arm half the world over the next few years? Everything indicates that we are. And of course, here on Visual Politic, we'll be following their every move. But for now, it's your turn. What do you think of this boom in the South Korean military industry? Do you think it will soon be common to see South Korean weaponry in our countries? Well, leave us your impressions below in the comments. If you like the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any news. As always, thank you so very much for being there. All the best. I'll see you next time.